Apple just released the iPhone SE 2022 edition, and I think that it has some vital flaws. Let's look at them. Just to clarify before we begin, this is the 2020 edition, not the new version, and because I don't have the new version, I cannot say for sure that all of the flaws that I will say in this video will be there. But I can be pretty confident that because of the spec sheet, that these flaws that I will say in this video will make a difference and they will affect your buying decision. The first flaw is the display. It is a 60Hz LCD Retina 4.7-inch display, and all of these factors here are problems. 60Hz, well, for phones as low as £200 or even lower, you've seen displays of 120Hz. LCD, you've seen AMOLED displays for half the price of the iPhone SE 2020 and the 2022 version. Retina display is just a marketing term from Apple, and 4.7-inch is very small. This is the size of the display. You may like it, but in fact it's incredibly small, and the giant bezels on the outside actually make it bigger than it should be for the size of display. So it's got a 65-ish percentage body to screen ratio, and that's very poor in 2022 standards, because nowadays we expect 85% plus body to screen ratios, and this is 65%. So you're clearly not getting very much. The screen doesn't take up most of the body of the phone. So that's basically, it emphasizes how this is quite outdated. This design here is it uses the body of the iPhone 8, so that's why it has all of these very old technology in the screen, which leads me on to the second flaw with the iPhone SE 2020 and the 2022 version. As I mentioned, the body of the phone is very outdated, and these are the problems with it. Large bezels, a home button, and outdated camera tech. Let's start with the large bezels. I already mentioned it, but this is not what you expect on a 2022 smartphone, especially one costing £400 or dollars. The home button is here, and this could be an advantage, it could be a disadvantage. I know that lots of people might like the home button as it provides extra security with the fingerprint scanner, but you need to remember that lots of other phones for less than this phone do have a side-mounted fingerprint scanner or an in-display fingerprint scanner. So really, if you want a fingerprint scanner, then maybe going for the home button isn't the best choice. Maybe going for a phone at a similar price with an in-display one would be a better idea. It has outdated camera tech, and on the back you can see that it has a 12 megapixel main camera, and this leads on to the next flaw, which is the camera. The phone features a 12 megapixel camera with no ultra wide, and that single camera has a 1/3-inch sensor. And we'll start with 12 megapixels, and even though 12 megapixels is the standard for Apple, it is not the standard for most other phones. You can find phones cheaper or at the same price with 48 megapixel, 64 megapixel cameras that can outperform this one. And when you combine it with the small sensor size, it provides poor low light performance. And did I mention that there is no night mode? Yes, there is no night mode. And phones that cost maybe £150 even have night mode. So considering that this is an Apple product and you expect the best because you're paying a premium price for Apple products, even though this is affordable for an Apple product, it is £400, and you are still paying quite a bit of money, I still expect the phone to have a good night mode. And not just one camera, but two cameras, no ultra-wide camera. I know that lots of other phones at this sort of price point have an 8 megapixel low-resolution camera with a small sensor, but just having one camera that's got a small sensor, and you compare that to having two cameras with a bigger one, the main with a bigger sensor and the ultra-wide with a smaller sensor, maybe 8 megapixels. I'd much rather have the second one. The sensors are bigger, and I mean, I know that Apple's software would be fantastic, but there comes a point where the hardware is so far in front that there's no amount of software can change things. And on this phone, as I said again, it takes the body and internals of the iPhone 8, and the iPhone SE 2022 version, the new one, basically has the same body as this and the iPhone 8. So, I mean, if you think about it, what they did is they took the Bionic 15 chip and put it in this phone and upgraded it, and with that comes other upgrades. But no new camera tech and no new sensor, and I know that the chip would improve the camera, but no amount of software will improve it to the point where it can beat competition with hardware that's 5 years ahead of this. You need to remember that this is from the iPhone 8, and even at that point it was a flagship camera, it is no longer flagship. In fact, this camera is not very good at all. If you compare look at some camera comparisons between 2020 or the 2022 version, you will see the difference. And the final flaw is the battery. Now, we know that on the last version, the 2020 version, which is here, we know that the battery was quite abysmal, barely getting 4 hours on a good day of constant screen on time. And this is in a time where phones are now getting 6 hours plus as a standard. So it was quite abysmal. And why? Because the battery was very small, under 2000 milliamp hours. And even right now, we think that in the Android smartphone market in 2022, we view a phone that has under 4000 milliamp hours as being a small battery, and this has less than half of that. So you can imagine that a battery is very small. But I do expect there to be improvements because of the new Bionic 15 chip, but because it's so efficient, so more efficient. But there comes a point where efficiency cannot change everything, because the battery size is only so big. I guess it might get an extra half an hour than last year's version, this right here, but that is not enough for it to be good battery. It would still be very poor. Now, I do not know, I do not have the new version, but watch some other battery tests and decide for yourselves. And I expect that the battery will be improved, but very slightly. Now let's conclude. I think you maybe should buy it if you need Touch ID. And if you really need Touch ID, this is probably the only phone you can go for, because any older phone would probably not be powerful enough for your needs. This phone is very powerful, it's got the latest Bionic 15, but you need to remember this is not as powerful as the iPhone 13, because it will not have enough RAM, it will not have as much storage, so it will not run as fast. It will be very fast, probably one of the fastest phones in this price range, but if you're looking for brute power, do not look for this. When you combine the power with the small screen and the battery, it does not look like a very good deal. I suggest waiting for the Poco F3, getting the Poco F3, or waiting for the Poco F4 or Poco F4 Pro. The Poco F3 this year or last year, whenever you're watching this video, was fantastic with the Snapdragon 870 chip. Very powerful phone. And in the next iteration, which would be releasing in the next couple of weeks, it will be far more powerful with the latest screen technology and cameras. So, I mean, if you need Touch ID, buy it, I guess. But if you consume lots of content, lots of videos, then do not buy this phone, because the battery is rubbish and will probably be rubbish. The display is quite outdated and the camera tech is quite poor. So, I mean, the only reason, again, buy it if you need Touch ID, but anything else, I suggest waiting for the Poco F4 to come out, or the F4 Pro, which will probably be around the same price and be about as powerful with latest screen tech and camera tech. But anyway, again, do not buy it if you consume lots of content, but if you like my content, please subscribe and like the video. Anyway, to sum up, do not buy this phone. Buy it if you need Touch ID, and wait for the Poco F4. Sorry. Bye.